We're watching Tropical Storm Dorian get slightly better organized as it heads towards the Windward Islands of the Caribbean. I'm Mike Naso from the YouTube IPR 365 Tropical Update page with an update on the Atlantic tropics. And, the late great Dr. William Gray always said August 20th is usually when things really start to come alive at any hurricane season, whether it's busy or not. And sure enough, we're closing in on September and we are getting more active. There's Dorian on the screen. You can see it's not that well organized, but it has been persistently popping up convection in the last 24 hours. And so it looks like it is going to survive through the islands. There was some curiosity wonders whether or not, is it going to dissipate before the islands and not be a factor? But looks like it will be. But whether or not it's a hurricane, that remains to be seen. We have another system, an invest north of the Bahamas and off the southeast coast. That could become a tropical storm. The next name is Aaron, but it would remain out at sea. And of course, that stormy weather along the Gulf Coast. No threat for development right now. A lot of dry air. See these darker colors? Where it's lighter, you definitely have the moist environment for hurricanes to strengthen. This dark air here is very dry, and that's going to be one of the factors that might limit Dorian's potential, at least up until about 70 west. Anything west of that, all bets are off. All right, here's the latest on Tropical Storm Dorian as of 11 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time. That's also Eastern Daylight Time, by the way. And it was at 11.7 north, 55.3 west. Winds were 50 miles per hour, so it's a mid-range tropical storm, certainly not a hurricane. And that pressure is still very high at 1,003 millibars. When you're looking for a Category 1 hurricane, you want like 990 millibars. So it's about 13 millibars too high. But small systems like Dorian can intensify quickly and also weaken quickly. So that's the fly in the ointment number one. It's small, so it could go up, it could go down, and we don't really know what it's going to do. It's moving west at 12 to 14 miles per hour, a bit slower than yesterday, which might explain why it's been a little bit more organized tonight. And we do now have a tropical storm watch for the island of Dominica, and that was issued by the Barbados Meteorological Service. We do have tropical storm warnings for Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines, as well as that tropical storm watch for Dominica, Martinique, and Grenada and the dependencies of Grenada. So, the Windward Islands, Leeward Islands, they're battening down the hatches, getting ready for what should be a mid-range to strong tropical storm sometime by Tuesday. After that, the general idea from the Hurricane Center is that Dorian is going to continue to pull west-northwest. There's going to be a little bit of a weakness around 70 west here in the high pressure, that Bermuda high, which is that clockwise flow. There's going to be a little bit of a weakness that's going to draw Dorian up. And it should make landfall as a hurricane, Category 1 hurricane, sometime late Wednesday, early Thursday in the Dominican Republic. Now, the one thing you guys got to know, Hispaniola, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, it will rip apart a hurricane. You could be Hurricane Katrina, and you spend 12 hours over the Dominican, you're not going to be the same type of hurricane. So the forecast is for Dorian to weaken to a tropical storm and then a depression by the time Friday night rolls around, when it's somewhere in the vicinity of the Bahamas here. Now, that does not mean it won't re-intensify, and where it goes from there, the odds are seeming to favor more towards the west. But again, it needs to get past 70 west. Tell me where Dorian is in 4 days, how strong it is. I could give you a better idea where it's going to go, but we just don't know right now. Here's the spaghetti model plots, as I like to call them. You can see they're pretty good towards the west, west-northwest, and then up towards Hispaniola. But they're divergent. Does it continue northward towards the South Carolina coast? Does it bend back west? The BAM model's keeping it weaker in west. And in between is Hispaniola, which will shred it apart. So then what are we dealing with? Are we dealing with a hurricane that's weakened after Hispaniola? Are we dealing with a depression that's going to re-strengthen over the Straits of Florida or the Caribbean? It's totally unknown. It really is, and it's frustrating. Usually we get a little bit more of a handle, but the computer models are in disagreement. This is the European model as of 12Z, and you can see it loses Dorian. It totally loses it over the Caribbean and then comes back with some sort of thing in the Western Gulf in about 192 hours. Likewise, the global forecasting system model, you can see that that loses Dorian. Here comes Dorian, and then gone. Totally gone. And so those are very good two models that just aren't, showing us anything. So we don't know what's going to happen. So then we look at another model. Check out the H-Wharf. Makes Dorian a major hurricane in the Bahamas right here, headed for Florida. Okay. What about the no-gaps model, the Navy? Look at what it does with Dorian. Makes Dorian a major hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico. So what do? We got two good models showing it's going to dissipate. We got two good models showing it's going to become a monster. And in the middle is Hispaniola, which could really totally change the factor of the hurricane. Is it going to be stronger, weaker? Is it going to move further north, further south? So right now, if you live in the southeast U.S., if you live in Florida, if you live in the Bahamas, keep an eye on Dorian. It's still very early. There are a lot of variables in play here, but it is frustrating. It is a frustrating one, no doubt about that. There's the water vapor imagery, and you can see look at all this dry air all around the tropical storm. But it's bursting, is keeping a nice little moist envelope. I was looking at the shear maps and couldn't figure out what is going on with this wind shear, because the shear maps show that it's not under all that much wind shear. It's got, maybe 10, 15 knots. So then I looked at the mid-level shear. Check this map out. Straight through the middle of the storm. It has 15 to 20 knots of that southwesterly flow here going right underneath it. So once Dorian gets out from that and continues into these more favorable conditions and warmer waters, we should see intensification. But again, it's such a tiny storm that it's open to a lot of factors from all angles. So it's still up in the air. Here's the bottom line with Tropical Storm Dorian as of tonight. It is expected to bring tropical storm conditions to portions of the Lesser Antilles where those watches and warnings are in effect. And those areas should refer to advice from local government officials and products from your local meteorological service for additional information. Dorian will likely produce 2 to 4 inches of rain across the Caribbean Antilles, with isolated amounts as high as 6 inches. And a lot of those areas are susceptible to mudslides, so you don't want to see that rainfall amount get any higher. And number 3, while it is too soon to determine the specific time or magnitude of possible impacts in Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, or in Hispaniola, interests in those areas should monitor the progress of Dorian. And that's what we're going to be doing. You can see it as the sun went down there. It is definitely its own little feature out here. Not a whole lot of clouds around it in any direction. And it is holding its own, possibly even strengthening a little bit. So we're going to see what it does tonight. And then by tomorrow night, it should be coming through the islands. And then as we get later on in the week, it will progress somewhere in the vicinity of Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, eastern Cuba, the Bahamas. Even in Jamaica, keep an eye on it in case Dorian decides to go further to the south. Either way, I'll be watching it, and we will talk to you guys next time.